everything kind of comes together to fulfill what you want to do. So being patient and learn from people and just do one little action that will just propel you forward. So I think that's my advice, honestly, and to know that no impact is small impact if it's positive.
Welcome. You're listening to the Young Changemakers podcast. In these episodes, your co-hosts Sarah, George and Anastasia will be talking to passionate young individuals from around the world to explore how they are making lasting impact in their local communities. So cozy up, listen in, because inspiring stories are waiting to be heard and power lies within youth.
Okay, hello Felister, and it's such an exciting time to have you on the third season of the Young Changemakers podcast. I've known you for about, 3 years now, I'd say. And I'm really excited for what we're going to be talking about and sharing today with the listeners. So welcome.
Thank you, George, and thank you for inviting me. I mean, you're doing an amazing work through this podcast, so I'm really happy to be part of it.
Yeah, no, I've been meaning to get you on the podcast for a while. So it's great, and so I'm calling from Australia, and Felister, she's on the other end of the world in Kenya. So hopefully we have some Kenyan listeners out there by now, because I know you've been an avid listener for some time. I'm sure you've been spreading the news of how good the podcast is. So Bariyako to all the Kenyans, and welcome to the third season. So Felister, just to our listeners, can you give a bit more of an introduction to yourself and your main passions and what drives you?
So I come from Kisii in Kenya, so it's a bit like 6 hours drive from Nairobi. And I work in I've been working in farming for the last 4 years seriously, but before that I was mainly in management and a bit of psychology. That is my background. But as I grew up, of course, I got to love more about nature. I got to learn about the importance of our food and the connections it has to every part of our lives. And really, I just wanted to get into it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I have a big passion for youth, because I think they are really they are the change makers that we need, with the fresh ideas, ready to adapt new things, and also merge them with older things. So that's, I think, my greatest passion is working with children and young people.
Yeah, I know. So Kisii, you grew up. Kisii is quite a semi-regional and rural area. Did you feel? And you said all your family were teachers. Did you ever feel like you would end up? Because I know now you're doing a lot of sort of education through your work and sharing knowledge about sustainable food systems. Did you ever think that you'd come back towards that sort of education and teacher role?
That's quite interesting. I never really intended to get into it, but somehow, I think seeing my parents, especially, my parents work with children mostly. So seeing them doing this, naturally it got into me. So I remember when I was in college, I was looking for, a part-time job, and the first thing that I thought of is to teach people English who couldn't speak English. So I think over time, I don't know how I got into it, but I never intended to. It's just something that came to me naturally. And for sure, I think my background has something to do with it, for sure.
So you said you studied psychology. Whereabouts was that? Was that in Turkey, wasn't it?
Yes, I studied at Istanbul Shehir University. So It's in Istanbul. Yeah, in a very, very interesting place, for sure, where you meet people from everywhere. And I was lucky to be in a place where a lot of expats live, and also to meet those international students really opened my mind to many things. But yes, I did management and psychology there, and that's what I have a degree in.
Yeah. And then I remember you telling me that you had this experience of volunteering on a permaculture farm. Whereabouts did you do that? And then that sort of changed your sort of future ambitions through that experience. Do you mind sharing a bit more about that?
Yeah, so the last year of my undergrad, I actually I just really didn't know what I wanted to do, because I was in this city. I had done internships in some companies in the city. Istanbul is quite big, quite busy, and I just felt like I needed a break. I needed to go and think. So there's this service online. They give opportunities. So it's called WOF. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's worldwide opportunities on organic farms.
Yeah.
And basically, you go and volunteer for the duration you're there in the farm, but you get a lot of free time. So you get to learn about the farm, but at the same time, you get a lot of free time in nature. And this particular one I went to was in Çanakkale. So that's quite a drive from Istanbul. And I intended to go there for for just 2 weeks. The village, it's a big village, but mostly it's been affected by rural to urban migration, and most of the occupants are old people. So the particular place I went is called Yenikoi, and it is formed by 20. They weren't so young; they had gotten older, but 20 people who are of course younger than the occupant, the residents there. They had very successful jobs in the city. I mean, they owned companies, they were big lawyers, and they just felt they needed a life away from all of that. So they bought a huge piece of land and made the eco village, designed it according to permaculture principles. So when I went there, it was the first time I had actually encountered a community that is staying together, not because they are born together or they're part of a clan, but they've intended to just live peacefully together and peacefully with the land. So when I was there for 2 weeks, I was like, okay, I didn't really feel like going back to the city. I was really impressed by how self-sufficient they were, how, the only thing, honestly, they were buying is salt and sugar for some time, especially when they had maybe workshops. But they sourced everything, wheat, all their veggies. They had an olive farm, so they had their own oil and all of this. For me, that was really fascinating. Wow. Because as I grew up, I knew you farm one or two things and maybe some vegetables, and then you get everything else from the supermarket. So that I think that's really made me think differently about how we live in general.
Okay. So it sounds like you're quite aware that they all had the same value system, and that's why they were able to get along and live together, and then be able to grow their own food and be a bit more self-sufficient. That's really, it's pretty interesting also from a psychology point of view to know that that they've all come under the same values and same belief system, and they thought that we can do this and set up this eco living village. And I've noticed that that's sort of become a commonality around the world, that a lot of people have sort of replicated that model. So Felister, you came back to Kenya, and you've probably done various other things, but we're going to skip ahead a fair bit. And then can you tell us about how you ended up at Ololo Farm and sort of your journey into that? Because that's obviously where I've met you.
Yeah. So I was actually, when I came back, I was organizing courses around permaculture. And I met Craig at one of the courses. It was on vermiculture.
Oh, that's right. I remember I was going to one of the worm farm courses with Rob. And then that's right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, so that's how we met. But actually, 1 year later, 1 year after that is when I had come here. I wanted to do something on the farm because I was really like talking a lot about permaculture and but I didn't have an experience in running a farm, which is different. Like in Turkey, I mean, it's different because I wasn't running, or I wasn't really I was mainly a volunteer. In circumstances here are different, so I really wanted to do something on the ground. And I had come to visit to see where Ololo is situated and what's being done here. And Craig told me like there's an opportunity for interns. If I wanted to do an internship here, I could apply. So I did, and I got it, thankfully. That's how I came to Ololo. Honestly, I mean, like it's the same thing that I really like, that it is very open to young people, and we continuously have like new interns. So yeah, that's how I came here.
No, and I think, because as we were running the farm, we were sort of trying to develop it on a system of, sustainability, and looking for people with similar values as us, and developing that regenerative and organic farming model. So to find someone young and energetic like yourself, it's just been such a great journey, and I'm so fortunate to have gotten to know you. Felister, so I'm going to jump into some bigger and bold questions. So obviously at Ololo Farm, can you share a bit more about the philosophy behind our production system there being regenerative and organic agriculture?
Yes. So Ololo mainly it aims to be a demonstration farm for good agricultural practices, and mainly regenerative and organic, as you've said. But also we borrow what is good from different models. So I wouldn't really characterize Ololo as a permaculture farm or as strictly an organic farm, or so it is a lot of practices from different agroecological models. And the main vision is actually to show like small scale farmers, they can produce what they need on the land, they can improve their soils, they can be economically profitable, but at the same time they can make sure that while they're doing that, they're doing a whole lot of good to both people in nature. So that is just to put it very generally, but there's a lot more that goes on the ground.
Yeah, it's difficult to paint the picture through the podcast, but yeah, and so I think that this model's working quite well because, I mean, in Kenya we're seeing and across Africa and probably other developing nations, we're seeing a lot of urbanization and sort of migration towards to the city to find work. But just from being in Kenya, you notice that doesn't always work because the jobs aren't there. So I mean, me personally, I think there's a great opportunity to sort of decentralize and go back to those sort of agrarian and rural livelihoods that once supported villages and massive families. So is that what you're also working on now through the sort of educational component?
Yes, so I'll give you an example of where I come from. So over time, land has been subdivided, and like we are used to growing a few things in a big piece of land. But when land is getting smaller and smaller, people think of getting opportunities elsewhere. Now, I think Ololo actually is situated in a very good place where people have already come here. Like they've come to Nairobi, and when they visit, they're always like, wow, you're doing so much in such a small place. Like if I could do this back at my home. So like the idea that people would come here, they're already in Nairobi, they're already a bit kind of given up on, the lands that they have back at home. And when they come here, they have new ideas on how to use their land more efficiently, and produce much more with more diversity than we're thinking of before. Like for home, I mean, like most people, they have a small veggie patch, and then they have to grow maize to cover their needs for the whole year. Twice a year they plant. So when they see what we're doing, I mean, they think of like growing much more, and there's more sources of food, maybe even thinking about changing their eating systems. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm hoping that we haven't measured, of course, yet. We're still a very young farm, but we haven't measured the impact we've had. But I'm really hoping people are thinking of going back home and doing something, especially if they don't have good living conditions in urban areas. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so incredible about Ololo Farm, is that we're happy to have, everyone walk around and see the animals, the rotational grazing, seeing the animals out in open pasture, and seeing the mixed diversification of plants and integration between livestock. Whereas most conventional farms, they close that front gate and they don't tend to, let the urban dwellers come out and, walk around. But that's what's been really great, is to share the knowledge and get people more interested in food again and understanding where it comes from.
Yeah.
Could you share a bit more about the sort of like innovative or new ideas that you've worked on, like the worm farm and the eggmobile and the practices that you've implemented?
So one of the biggest, ideas that drive us is creating a no waste farm where all the nutrients in the carbon, in all the cycles and water cycles are complete, are in a complete loop, and not being wasted. And because of that, we are always looking for new ways to use any resources that come out of Ololo. So I always, when I take people around the farm, I always start with our garden, which is diverse. It's organic, so we have had to put in different techniques. Of course, companion planting, in rotating the crops. Of course, and the garden actually feeds both the staff and visitors who are in the lodge, who come to the lodge. So the way we do our planning to make sure that there's continuous production all through the year. So, and then we, the plants have to eat something, and I always tell them I'll come back to this later. We go to our animal, the paddocks, and these first thing is like we ensure that we rotate our plants all over the land. Our animals, we mainly do poultry, so we have broilers, we have layers, and we have ducks. So what the chicken normally do is we try to make all the animals actually work for their own food. So by rotating them over the land, they're able to feed the grass that that feeds them, and to provide an environment for the microbiology that is needed in the soil. Moving them every day also gives them access to fresh pastures. So and when they do their scratching and all of that, they're always spreading the manure. So they do a lot of work while they're feeding. And in the words of one of the people who actually inspires us at the farm, in terms of regenerative agriculture, he gives this example of in nature, where we're just next to the park. So where you see gazelles, I mean, they always are together. They have of course a predator that moves them around. I mean, they're always moving. They eat from a place, but at the same time they leave something behind as they move, and they only come back when that soil and the grass has been regenerated. The grass has grown. So never do they feed in one position, one place for a long time. And that's what we try to mimic. I mean, here we have animals there, especially the broilers. They're enclosed in one paddock for a period of time. So we keep them, for us, because we give them a bigger space, we keep them for 1 week. That is our old system actually, and then we move them to new pastures every week. But now we have a new design where we move them every day. We move the broilers every day over the land, so they feed, so they're in one place in a very short time, and they keep on moving onto new pastures. So this is really really what happens in nature, and the the animals are able to, give the manure to the soil and let the microbes work on the manure, the insects, and ensure that everything, gets back, actually becomes better, like in terms of the quality of the soil and the grass. And it takes a long time, graze for a short time, and leave it to, regenerate over a longer period of time before you bring the animals back to the same piece of land. So yeah, we mimic nature in that manner, and that's something that you'll see also for our layers. We call it an egg mobile, and it's also moved very frequently. So they're able to feed in an area. They get really good nutrients, because our eggs, we've had really good feedback from our eggs. I mean, because of the quality, the color, of course, the taste, we're being told like the taste is eggier. That's the description people are giving it. Yeah, eggier than other eggs. So yeah, and George, another thing that we do, I mean, that mimics nature. I mean, I always ask people if they remember when we were young. I mean, we could, when you go to the farm, you would find so many things in the soil. I mean, so many moving things, so many critters. But as we grew up, I mean, we've lost them, and one of the main ones is earthworms. And that's actually normally a sign that your soil is doing great. That's one of the problems we're having here in Kenya, that we're losing earthworms in the soil. We can't find them. We can't find them, and we know that earthworms, apart from aerating the soil, when they eat any organic matter in the soil, what comes out is really rich compost, completely done. The vermicast are one of the best sources of different microbiology that you can add to the soil, which is actually what plants need, not fertilizers. So to mimic that, we do vermiculture here. It's one of my favorite things actually on the farm, and we both use it as a way of producing really rich, organic compost for our plants and for our soils. But also we use it as a waste recycling method, because they eat any organic material. They eat from manure to dry leaves to all your kitchen waste, to cardboard and paper waste. So they're really good at turning that into something that can save you a lot of money from buying fertilizer.
Hi there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far. There's a lot more that we can do. The Global Changemakers mission is to support youth to create positive change towards more inclusive, fair and sustainable communities. We do this by providing skills development, capacity building, mentoring and grants. Head to our website, globalchangemakers.net, to learn more. Now, on with the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
No, it's I think it's the way you can describe it is like you're harnessing nature and you're letting it sort of self-organize itself and give back to the soil. And then with a healthier soil, in turn, you'll have healthier animals and more nutrient-dense food. So I guess that's why a lot of the people buying the produce and such as the eggs, they're saying that eggs taste more eggy. But that's so true, because a lot of the food, conventional food that you buy, it doesn't. It's lacking that the diversity, and as a result, the minerals and sort of the nutrient density of the food is lost. A common Felister, like a common argument now, is that everyone's saying that sort of regenerative and organic agriculture, it'll never feed the world. We're going to have 9.7 billion people by 2050. Do you have an answer to that question or that statement?
Yes, George. I mean, the reason this kind of agriculture is because I strongly believe it's the way forward, and probably very soon the only way forward. Already, I mean, like we have voices from different people and who are into this matter, and the louder voices are normally from larger farms, larger corporations, but not mainly from those who produce most of our food and those who can be trained to produce even more food from the piece of land they have, and those are the small scale farmers. So if we had a whole picture, if we weighed in all the voices from top to down, all round, I think then we'd have a more realistic picture. Right now, it really just depends on who is speaking the loudest. I definitely think that I know people actually produce more when they start farming organic and start using regenerative methods. They produce much more from a piece of land, and they farm all year round, so it's just not seasonal. Especially when they've been doing this, like doing monocultures or just planting few things. But if you do a good model, if you do a good design, you can produce all year round. That means you're producing more food. The food is also local, really depending on local resources. So the expenses are not so much as compared to depending on agriculture imports. One thing is for sure, even if everyone like you know governance of how that food is going to be distributed, and there needs to be local, especially for Kenya, I would say there needs to be local governance systems that ensure whatever food is produced locally is distributed along that local region. So if like now we depend on other counties, like we always have to export maize from one county and receive vegetables from another one. If we create a system where things are produced in close proximity, then we need to make sure that it moves within that locality. Yeah, definitely there's work to be done for regenerative agriculture to feed the world, but it is possible. We just really need to make it urgent.
And I think that ties in nicely, like how, a lot of our biggest issues, we're having a global, health crisis, from extreme obesity to extreme undernourishment, like the double burden of malnutrition. And maybe you could explain a bit more about how this transitions into, awareness of adequate eating practices and proper nutrition, and your work, Felister, with Maureen Muketha, who I had on the podcast last season, and she's another young change maker.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting how education works. Once we have someone coming into the farm, and you just talk a bit about like what food is and how it should be produced and how it's being produced, people are looking for more, and they're wondering what can we do. How can we produce, either get good food, produce, they immediately see the benefits. And then when you tie it in with nutrition education, it makes a whole more difference. People get into action. So of late, we have gotten really interested in educating our community about nutrition, and there's a lot of myths. People really believe a lot in different things. Why you should be eating a lot of red meat because it gives you good blood. They don't know the amounts of foods that they should be eating, how food relates to the workings of your body, different diseases, how it can help you to manage even diseases. So bringing in a nutritionist, Maureen has been really excellent. What we did is we started with our staff, because we always believe we should start where we are. We need to educate ourselves first. So mainly we brought families of the staff, and they would stay at the lodge for 3 days. They would get the workshop, mainly the adults. Okay, the adults and children are getting 2 different workshops, of course, because of the level of engagement that you need to have with children. And then they, would go through the farm, and we would talk about, the different groups of food and how they relate to, our nutrition. Over the whole period, we also show videos, movies. So it's a 3-day workshop. They also the kids get to go into the kitchen and cook food, and learn the basics of ensuring that when you're cooking, food is not overcooked. All right. Okay. So giving them, and the last component I was talking about is teaching them about tree planting. So one exciting activity is all the families get to plant a tree, and it is written, like, if it's Peter Lestikel's family, there's that whole feeling when people plant trees, and it's something we just realized, especially in the last one.
Wow.
And an interesting thing is that when planting trees, one thing we've noticed is a lot of the participants actually say that they haven't planted a tree by themselves. They've never planted a tree. And this it's something that we didn't expect. We thought at least everyone has planted a tree in their lifetime.
Yeah.
But so this whole workshop, it gives kind of a holistic overview of how regenerative systems should be working. And it's not just in farming, it's the whole food system. It's social, it's economic, it cuts really through. And having those families here, I mean, that's part of what we like. I mean, from permaculture, it's sharing our knowledge. It's part of fair share. So creating that community, and hearing kids say, that, like, it's been 3 hours, I haven't drunk water. I was told I should drink water after every 3 hours. It's really, it's exciting.
Yeah. Wow.
And people going home and planting different herbs, and taking herbs with them to go and plant. It's amazing, really, George. So we are getting new opportunities to tie in the knowledge we have into the community, and that's one of the main objectives of Ololo, is to share our knowledge, to spread what we find out, what is working for us, to help people adopt it. So yeah,
that's incredible. And I think just being the action of planting a tree is so important for Kenya, because I mean a lot of people chop down trees for charcoal. So yeah, and knowledge is so powerful, as we all know, and just sharing and through storytelling and practical examples, it's incredible. Felister, you're like a big advocate for the SDGs, and I know Ololo Farm is now part of the UN, United Nations Global Compact. Could you share a bit more about that?
So just a bit about UNGC, UN Global Compact initiative. It's actually an initiative to involve businesses in, taking forward the SDGs, and it's a commitment in 4 areas. So it's about human rights, environment, labor, and anti-corruption. And the reason actually we really liked joining is because it's voluntary, but at the same time it gives you a way of integrating the SDGs in every part of your business, and they really support you. We believe that it's the contribution of everyone, and especially now in companies, in businesses, to help, like, move towards like the goals that have been set. We believe in the goals; they're very essential. So for agriculture, it cuts across so many of the SDGs. And just like very recently, we enrolled on the Young SDG Innovators program that UNGC is offering, and we have a team from Ololo who are we're going to attend together, and we've entered different projects, including our soil improvement program, our Trees for Life program. There's the nutrition program also, so basically education. And of course the how we raise our plants, organic farming. So all these projects, because we need to show that we're creating impact, and this is what they're going to help us to do, like to measure what the impact that we're making on our soils, make it really purposeful.
Yeah, I think so spot on, Felister.
I think it's to yourself, and every single business, every single work can create an impact towards achieving the SDGs. And global compact actually helps in aligning yours with the SDGs.
It sounds like a really great network to be a part of. But going back to how I'd just like to comment on how agriculture sort of touches on or sort of achieves a lot of the SDGs. It's really powerful because conventional agriculture for so long has been like a culprit and contributor to a lot of the problems we face: soil degradation, erosion, and damage to the environment. But now, like, this new system of regenerative and organic agriculture and building soil health and looking after the animals, as you've been explaining, Felister, it's now like provides such an opportunity to sort of regenerate our landscapes and also create more awareness around the importance of eating healthy. So it's really, I'm excited about it, and I know you are, because I remember meeting this guest who you took around the farm once, Felister, on a farm tour. And she said that Felister, she's incredible. The passion in her eyes is like no one I've ever seen. So I think that's a real testament to the work that you're doing, and its impact on others. It's exciting, and you're definitely creating a ripple effect, I'd say.
Thanks. George, it's actually, I can say I'm really lucky to be in a place where that inspiration comes every day. There's that vision, and over time you're seeing new ideas on how to reach it. So and it's a shared thing. It's a shared vision here. So I would really say being lucky at being at the right place at this time, especially, is been quite inspiring. And just to be able, I think farm tours are my favorite, because then you show what's happening. You show what's happening, and when you see people getting excited about it, you get even more excited yourself. So I'm really happy to be at the right place right now.
So Felister, like you've found like a real passion of yours, and there's obviously a lot more to be done. But do you have any sort of advice to maybe some other young people out there who it's just one of the questions we tend to ask, is if you have any advice on how people could maybe start to tackle an issue or solve a problem that they care about?
I think for me, what worked is just trying to learn from different people. First of all, take time to learn. Take time to see if there's anyone else who's solving the problem that you are. Attach yourself with them a bit. Learning from people has been the most resourceful thing I've done. And begin. Some people are good at doing stuff immediately, and some are good if it's something that you can inform people about. Just start talking, And the moment you start, George, I don't know if I think you might have gotten this also, because I've been following what you do. The moment you actually start, everything just moves forward, connecting. Everything kind of comes together to fulfill what you want to do. So being patient and learn from people and just do one little action that will just propel you forward. So I think that's my advice, honestly, and to know that no impact is small impact if it's positive.
And then that just creates a huge wave of energy. And being a part of the Global Changemakers network has been exactly that. Felista, unfortunately, that's probably all we've got time for today. But it's been such a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed sharing the work that you do at Ololo Farm. And I hope you have a good rest of the week, and I look forward to catching up.
Thanks, George. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking soon.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Remember to help us create a greater impact by sharing this and encouraging everyone on your social media to take a listen. If you want to reach out, you can contact the hosts via podcast@global-changemakers.net, or feel free to message us on Instagram @globalchangemakers and Twitter @wearegcm. We'll be very happy to talk to you and answer any questions. Remember to follow us and subscribe to this podcast. See you in the next episode. Take care.